All right, before we get into that particular engagement, let's tell you about the African National Congress, which is addressing supporters at this hour at the party's pro-Palestine Solidarity March in Pretoria. Let's just take a listen for a few moments as to what's being said.
Long live the fighting spirit of Tambo, long live. Long live the undying spirit of Comrade Tambo, long live. Down with the Israeli government, down. Down with the killing of people in their mosques, down. Down with the bombing of hospitals, down. Down with the killing of innocent children, down. I am Israel, South Africa, I am embassy, ambassador was Israel, boycott Israeli products, boycott. Boycott Israel products, boycott. Amanda, Nawetu, Niare Savana. Thank you,
Amanda, Humande Nutima Shame, Humande Nutai Shame Tasema, Seya, Lusaka, Eutama Taisama.
Those comments from Nomvula Mokonyane, who chairs the ANC's subcommittee on international relations, just to bring to you almost in bullet point form what she has just said, and that is that Israel must leave South Africa, and that also, she says, kick out the ambassador, and she concludes by saying that South Africa must boycott Israeli products. That is a massive statement to make, very strong words. I might tell you that just yesterday I sat on this very table. Across was the spokesperson of the party, and I asked the very question about your characterization of Israel as an apartheid state. Does that make sense, though, that you are still trading with Israel? And she was non-committal as far as the answer or response is concerned. But today, much clearer statements, and I might argue that, in fact, given that these are comments of the governing party, that is breaking news. Very, very strong statements there being made by the ANC's chairperson of international relations. In fact, it is the very story that we are now going to discuss with Nkululeko Sibiya. He is a teaching fellow and PhD candidate at Wits University, and his forte is that of analyzing the media and how we as media have covered this story. But Mr. Sibiya, I'm going to broaden this discussion because I don't want to confine it to how media practitioners in South Africa, like myself, have covered this story. But I think it is a story that is being looked at and analyzed as to how the media is covering it closer to where the conflict is taking place, and I would dare say in countries like America. Can I just ask for your overview, just your general observance as to how the media in the Middle East and the media in Western nations have covered this conflict thus far?
Well, good day, Colin, and good day to your viewers. Broadly speaking, if you look at the media from the liberal media in the West, if you look at their coverage and your position is that is aligned with the South African government, then I would say the coverage has been nauseating, right, from the West.
Okay.
If you look at journalists like Harry Fears, for instance, who directed Gaza Still Alive, the documentary, he's Western, he's a Western journalist, but he criticized his own colleagues including the BBC, for instance, for dehumanizing Palestinians, for instance, in their reportage. So if you look at the discourses of, media houses in the Middle East and those in the West, they are far apart, right? And this tells us about the political economy of the media and how, in fact, I think, for me, this is one period where we get to see what strings actually pull media houses and media institutions. In fact, governments and companies play a huge role in affecting the content. Of course, in the Middle East, what you are finding, the leader there is Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera, we know, has been sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. And so the narratives from those, like if you look at Lebanon, for instance, those countries that have voiced themselves and said, we stand with the people of Palestine, those narratives have been, they humanize the people of Palestine. They also go into a narrative that just doesn't start on October 7. If you look at the West, the narrative starts on October 7. We were attacked. This is 9/11. Hamas just came in and massacred people. And yes, indeed, they massacred people. Those were atrocities. However, context, just this last point, context is important. Gaza has been under siege for the past 16 years, right? But the narrative from the West is as though that it was a peaceful nation and a peaceful Israeli nation was people were enjoying life, and suddenly, boom, Hamas attacked. And look at the initial reporting, the tagging of the attacks as the 9/11 of Israel.
You juxtapose Al Jazeera. This is an international news network. It's a broadcast media station, much like Newzroom Afrika here. And then you've also spoken about the BBC. And I want to use just those two examples you have used. Al Jazeera, would you say that they have conducted a balanced reportage on this story? And if you carry that view, you've got to justify why.
I would have to say there is a balance of sorts, although you can still pick up the leaning towards the sympathies with the Palestinian people. Why do I say that? Because they go behind, the sensitive and very dangerous spaces to go talk to the people, to show us exactly what's happening, right? So you could almost, sense that they are an Arab station, right? And there's this discourse about Arab nations should side with Palestine. Of course, we've seen countries like Egypt that are aligned to, even as they condemn Israel, but they officially are supporting Israel through this thing. So, yes, Al Jazeera, for me, why would I justify it and say there's a bit of balance in this sense? They've been carrying that story for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not something that, if you watch Al Jazeera headlines, Palestine is part of the news agenda, right? With the Western media, I mean, if we look at the past 2 months, the far-right Israeli government had been, massacring Palestinians and actually turning on the screws on Gaza, for instance. But if you look at the media narratives, they didn't cover it at all.
The reason I'm bringing about this juxtaposition is that this week, very interesting developments taking place in the UK, where there was a protest against the BBC, and that protest was that the BBC did not want to use or describe Hamas as terrorists. I think I'm recollecting correctly here. And there is an example of the kind of pressure on a broadcast media to say, why are you not characterizing this particular militant group of being terrorists? And I suppose, by extension, carrying the view of the government of the UK, which basically have called Hamas terrorists. Why do you think that is? Because, by the way, we've also seen resignations from some of these media organizations, particularly their correspondents who are in the Middle East, and they're saying that we're resigning because we cannot live with ourselves. This is based on, quote unquote, integrity.
Let's start with this term, information wars. Wars will be fought on the ground, and they will be fought, you know, on our media systems, for instance. Information is key. Information is big. I was teaching a class recently on ideology, and I took a brave step in revealing to my first-year students where I stood in the matter, right? I won't hide it. I won't sit here as a person who doesn't take a side in the conflict. I stand with the people of Palestine. In fact, I believe that the government of the ANC, for all its wrongs, is correct on this matter. But that shouldn't blind me, for instance, from really being able to assess what is happening. Why would I say then you have this unfortunate imbalance in power, right? Look at Russia today. What happened to Russia today and its broadcasts in the country? If you switch on DStv today, they will tell you that because of sanctions, EU sanctions, you can't see Russia today. So you'll have to scour the internet, YouTube, to find yourself content from RT. So again, we start seeing the power of states on media houses. If you look at the BBC, obviously you're going to get people who are going to complain from all sides. I mean, when I reveal that I stand with the people of Palestine, there was a letter written to my HOD that I should be policed in class because I'm an anti-Semite, a homophobe and all of that. Why am I giving you that anecdote? It is because the power of the Zionist movement, for instance, across the globe, right, is massive. You've got the United States, which has a serious media arsenal through its Pentagon, for instance, right? These people sponsor movies. They sponsor all sorts of things, right? And they also have very well-established public broadcasters and private media houses like CNN that, to some extent, will take the narrative of the government, because if you take the wrong step, and this is where actually I think the liberal media has really tied itself in knots. Because ideologically, the liberal media says, give everybody a voice, find the truth in between. But what we are seeing of late, and maybe because of the social media, is that you align yourself, you put yourself in line to be sanctioned.
Yeah.
So I can understand why the BBC, I mean, the Guardian today reported on 1,600 complaints about the reporting. 800 were saying Israel is not being covered fairly, and the others were saying, look, the Palestinians are not getting a fair hearing on BBC. So that will happen.
Yeah.
I expect it to happen, but we still have to, put our ear to the ground and do a little bit of discourse analysis. Like, for instance, when the BBC says the Israelis were killed while Palestinians died, that in itself, those two words have a lot of power in them. Those that died seem to have died naturally, in the right way. It was a natural cause. And those that were killed were attacked. So when we're talking about Palestinians, it seems as if there's no perpetrator, or the perpetrator is just.
Nkululeko Sibiya, let me stop the conversation there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is a story that I think we are going to be seized with in the days to come, that conflict not showing any signs of stopping at this stage. Thank you very much for your analysis.